Fintech Chatter TV. Presented by Tier 1 People. Leaders in Fintech Executive Search. Hello and welcome to Fintech Chatter, the show where I connect with Fintech leaders for a bit of a chat. I'm your host, Dexter Cousins, and in today's show, I'm rejoined by my good friend, Leda Glyptis. Now, I'm sure many of you all know Leda, but if you don't, she's well known not only for the work that she does with 10X, but her work also within the media as part of Fintech Futures. And she's also just written her first book, Bankers Like Us. And we're having a bit of a special chat today, not to talk about 10X or Fintech, but to talk about the process that you went through of writing your book and the book itself. It's actually the third book review that I've done on the podcast, believe it or not. Yeah. But you're in very good company. I guess, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
I read the book on a trip to Sydney recently and kind of read it on the train and then on the way back. And I think I said to you when I got about 100 and odd pages into it, that it felt as if you and I were at dinner and I was having a conversation with you. And I asked the question, like, was that intentional?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was intentional.
Yeah. It was amazing, right? And I'd vowed actually this year that I wasn't going to read any more books because I was just so fed up of there being references to Stoicism, the kind of Colonel Saunders, story about handling rejection. And your book was filled with just personal stories, kind of examples, situations that made it, kind of just such a kind of intimate experience.
And that was the intention, and I'm very happy it felt that way. It resonated. It's interesting because people who know me like you say I could hear your voice.
Yeah,
I read it in your voice.
Well, I could see your hands moving at the time.
And another thing.
It was literally, as you were kind of going through some of the examples, particularly the ones that were frustrating.
Yeah,
where I could just see the hands going.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it has worked the other way as well because a couple of people have messaged me on LinkedIn or approached me that don't actually know me. And then they hear me speak for the first time and go, oh my God, you speak exactly how you write. It's actually the other way around. But it is, you're right. It's a set of very personal experiences. And part of the reason for that is that in my career of the last 20 years, people always find very specific and minutely detailed reasons why they're special, they're different, things don't apply to them, things are unique. And I find that even though these excuses tend to be displacement, they're just that, excuses. You need to fight them in the detail. Yeah. You need to go deep into the weeds of whatever it is that's making the conversations difficult. And one of my frustrations with a lot of the books we see in the industry is that they're too abstract.
Yeah.
Too theoretical. A lot of it is repetitive. You're absolutely right. But you finish reading and you go, well, what am I supposed to do with this now?
Yeah.
I haven't had a new idea reading this, and I haven't got any practical applications on things that would force me or encourage me or help me to reflect and do things differently. So I don't think I bring any new ideas, to be honest with you. I don't think my book is that. But I'd like to think that it does offer some practical ideas on things you could do differently. If these things frustrate you as well.
Yeah. It was kind of like a chicken soup for the soul for bankers, right?
That.
Like it's kind of
chicken
that's what
soup
it
for
reminded
the soul.
me.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah, it's what it reminded me of was these kind of little kind of stories or tales or examples where you could just go, yeah, I've been through that before. And it's I find this in my work, right? When I'm sitting with a chief exec, it's a lonely place to be, right? And you think you're the only one that's failing or not doing well when everybody's having the same experience, just they might not be verbalizing it in the media or kind of externally. And I think that kind of connection comes from, hey, we're all in the, we're all experiencing the same things. We all have the same frustrations. And I think the other thing that, and you said about not getting ideas from books, and it's one of the frustrations that I've had with reading books is there haven't been any new ideas, and it's very hard to be original. But the reality is, right, is that the world that you're in, it just is the world, right? We can fight to change it as much as we want, right? But it is what it is, right? It's kind of the DNA of it, and I think that's what is so interesting about your book is that it's kind of just the kind of DNA of what it's like to work in a bank.
Yeah, I'm obviously well chuffed you feel that way, but it's an interesting one because as I started writing it, my publisher is not a financial services publisher; it's an academic publisher in the US, and they rightly pointed out that a lot of what I was saying could be relevant to anyone operating in large scale change or in a shifting industry, and we toyed with the idea of trying to open it up to non-bankers. And actually, I'd like to think that it's written in a way that if a non-banker picked it up, maybe they would skip some of the examples, but it would still resonate. But what I was saying to you earlier really held me back. And I made it very specifically about our industry because I really do think that the devil is in the detail. Yeah. In the detail is where you make it relevant and relatable and actionable if somebody chooses to. But the detail can't be faked. Yeah. I've read books, again, in the industry over the years, where you're like, what are you talking about? Yeah. That's not how it works.
I think that this was the other thing that really struck me about your book, particularly at the time that we're in and the moment that we're in, is that it was also, almost like a manual for dealing with change. And not just change in your career, or change in a business, but just change in life. And the kind of, the qualities that, and the things that you have to face, right, to slay the dragon, so to speak.
Yeah, interesting. I suppose it's the same qualities that make you not lose focus, be resilient, decide which battles you're going to fight and which hills you're going to die on. And the reality is, it's only going to get harder. And I've been saying that for years, and I've very much made that point in the book. It's going to get harder because we've been reluctant. There are things that we could have done and we haven't, and now all the things have to happen at once.
Do you think it could also be getting harder because in about a decade's time, most banks are going to be operating with mainframes that are nearly 100 years old?
Well, I think that's already not scaring people enough. Yeah. If I'm honest, I would expect people to be panicking about this much more. And I do reference those COBOL mainframes in the book. I worked with a bank a few years back that had death on their risk register. And, we're all dying slowly and inexorably. But they meant much more specifically because, of course, COBOL has natural language components. Children who may never have seen COBOL. And in certain countries, they're dying. The people who know how to do this are dying. Which is not funny at all, but it's also not surprising. Yeah. And yet you're seeing all these organizations choosing to spend time, money, and headspace on other things. And it's a choice. Yeah. And I think one of the things that I did try to bring out in the book is it may not be a good choice, but that's the choice you've got. Yeah. And we've learned the hard way that by leaving things, they don't go away. They don't magically resolve themselves. The Hollywood endings don't materialize unassisted. But it's also not all is lost yet. There's quite a lot that can be done. Somebody described the book recently as a self-help manual, which I quite liked. And fundamentally what I've tried to do is, he said, well, look, if you want to do this, if you want to be part of the change, these are some very practical ways you can do it without losing your job, without leading a rebellion. But equally, if you want to drive fundamental change, you need to make radically different decisions. And although it's helpful and possible to be part of the change in ways that are small and easy, big change is neither small nor easy. And you can say that's not for me. And I respect that. But we need to stop pretending that either we have no choice or it's not possible because it's possible and we have the choice. We just need to exercise it.
Now, we've talked a lot about bankers' woes, but what I also wanted to talk to you about was the process that you went through to actually write a book? You know, I've had people say to me, you should write a book. And I think, like, what am I going to write 300 pages about? Yeah, really. I guess, first of all, what was the kind of inspiration, the moment where you went, yeah, I'm going to do it?
It was done to me. So I've been writing my blog for Fintech Futures for quite a few years now.
Right?
That's right. And Tanya Andresian, who is the genius behind that blog, she's the one who decided that there was something there that needed a home. She's the one who decided weekly was the right cadence. I was convinced nobody will want to read that stuff every week.
How on earth do you get something that weekly, right? I guess I do podcasts weekly. So.
Yeah, I write in batches.
Right.
And I tend to write on flights. So there you go. The lockdown was difficult because I had to I used to take my laptop and go and sit in the park during the first few months of lockdown because I have created, you need to create habits, and I'll get back to how the book came about, but you need to create habits. And for me, because I traveled so much in the times before and I travel so much now, I have this thing where I never get Wi-Fi on a plane, ever, even if they have it, because it's nice to not be bombarded. So I used to create these little bubbles of time and space. It's time boxed. Even when you're coming to Australia, it's a long time, but it's time boxed. And you don't allow for external.
Yeah.
So you write in that window. So if I have a 3-hour flight, I can draft and edit a blog piece. And that's what I do.
Yeah.
And actually, when lockdown started, I used to take my laptop and go to the park because it's very hard to not be connected to the world when, you know, things are pinging.
Yeah.
And so the blog has been a surprising success for me. Tanya's not surprised at all, but I was surprised because it's a very particular set of topics I deal with. Yeah. But it has its audience. It has a community.
A really particular style of writing as well, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah. So it did surprise me that it had such a following. I mean, extremely pleasant surprise, don't get me wrong, but it was a surprise. And it's got a consistent following. It hasn't gone, you know, flavor of the day. So it's been there for 6 years and it's consistent, which is an absolute gift. So Tanya was like, it's time. You're going to write a book. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't have the time. What would it be about? So she hacked the system and she reached out to Taylor and Francis and said, you need to talk to this author. She will be sending you a book proposal and then you'll have a meeting. And then, of course, I did it because I had a task to do and I'm very obedient like that. The original idea was to take some of the more persistent and or more popular themes of the blog. That did not work, as you've noticed. The book isn't actually made up of the blogs. There's the odd idea that is verbatim, and I actually had times when I was writing and I was like, wait, I'm pretty sure I've said this before.
I was going to say, did you feel like a bit of a cheat? You know, because a little bit. You read, right? And I think this is one of the things that, again, one of the reasons why I've not wanted to read books is because now with self-publishing, there's kind of, you know, there's no kind of authority on the editorial. Yeah, content,
well, actually, right? Because this isn't self-published. And there was an editor, thankfully.
Yeah, exactly right.
Because I'm the queen of the typo as well, let me tell you.
But I guess, you know, my point being is that if you go on, you know, just Google it, right? It'll be write a book in 5 days, right? And it's like, just take what you've already written and just, you know, and so did you kind of, as you were doing that, did you feel, hey, I'm being a bit of one of these Amazon #1 bestseller books?
I didn't actually, that sounds quite good. I didn't think of it like that. Well, so it went in a bit of a curve because at first I wanted to reuse certain pieces and reference them, but it was a bit of a Frankenstein. It didn't work. Yeah. And there are places where I have ideas, which I'm okay with, but there were a couple of times when I was like, I have said this before and I said it better. So I've gone back to find it. And of course, I give really weird titles to my blogs, as you know. So I can't always remember what I call. I know that I've said it, but 6 years worth of weekly columns, you can imagine. Yeah. I spent quite a long time trying to find it and then going, oh, actually, I didn't say it that much better. There were 2 or 3 places where I lifted a paragraph. And I felt like I was cheating my readers in a major way.
Yeah.
And I told the publisher, and he was like, "You're being ridiculous now. I mean, feel free to reference it if you want."
But I disagree, right? And the reason why is that, like, the end result is I'm not the only person to say that it felt like you were there in the room as I was reading it, right?
Like that.
Which, if you've put that much into it and you've put yourself into it, and that then comes out on the page, right?
Well,
and it wasn't
means
a page,
a lot.
it was a PDF, right? So it's, had a screen to go through as well. So
it means a lot to hear you say that.
Yeah, but in terms of, I guess, the kind of thinking behind it, is this part of some kind of bolder career move for you? Is it you setting the scene for doing the circuit at some point, or
not really, not yet, definitely. I got the bug though, because writing this book, I started writing this book, and of course writing against the plan I had given the publisher, and although that changed quite a lot, the overall intent and tone didn't. When I said to the publisher, let's scrap this book, because I've actually worked out what I really want to write. And thankfully, John was like, "No, finish this book, then you write the other thing." But it was very much while I was writing this book. And this book, as you know, because you know me and you've read my stuff before, it's definitely a deeper, wider thing, but it tackles all the same themes that I write about. So it's familiar territory, but actually really fleshed out. And it feels amazing to have it into the world. It really does. But I feel that there is, now that I've done this, which I felt was a bit of a gap in the market, there is an even bigger gap of going deeper into, okay, what does actually doing the doing look like once you've gotten started? Because this is about getting started. Yeah. I want to write the book about what it looks like in the messy middle, as we say. To do that, you need the reality check of being in the work. Yeah. So I'm not moving anytime soon.
Probably you're going to reveal a lot of secrets as well, which might be a career limiting move.
Well, when I finish writing, I'm like, I'll have to retire now because no one will have me.
Yeah, which is kind of where I was coming from before with the other question. Is there's only so much kind of they're going to ask, "Oh, you got to reveal more in the next one."
Well, a couple of times I have people messaging me, "Was that me? Are you referencing me in that piece?" I never, ever make the lines direct. And if I'm writing about a situation or a particular person, I tend to leave it a very long time so that it's not traceable. Yeah. Because it's never about shaming anyone or making anyone feel uncomfortable. So the chances are that something happened last week and you're thinking, "Oh my God, is that it?" And it's random luck because I wrote that piece 4 months ago or something. However, if it resonates and it makes you think and it makes you question behavior and it makes you go, "Oh my God, I shouldn't have done this," then good. It's not about you, but it's for you.
Yeah. In certain situations, like the behavior and the response that you see 100%. Is almost kind of identical.
Yeah. Well, as I say in the book, all banks are exactly the same, but in profoundly different ways. Yeah. And that applies to people's reactions to crises. It applies to different stages of business. Like, there isn't that much originality out there. Of course, the particular confluence of events in your life feels unique. Yeah. And in the detail it is. But you're absolutely right. The challenges we face, different phases of companies, the interactions between people, there is a universality to them. And actually finding that universality is both reassuring and actually how you solve for them.
Yeah. So on that point, I think we were talking about books and how there's not really that much originality, and I think it's kind of pretty much impossible to be original now, but what you can be is you. Yeah. What it can be is yours. And I think that's kind of what, I would say with your book is it's yours. Yeah. It's not you trying to do in the style of someone else, because
it's a very unique style.
It's a good formula and it's a seller, right?
Yeah. It's funny, for anyone who hasn't read any of my stuff, it has a very particular style. Yeah. I write in a very particular way. I'm aware of that. But it's unmistakable that it's me. Yeah. Somebody called me a couple of weeks after the book came out I'm guessing they hadn't read it yet, going, I really want to write a book myself. Who's your ghostwriter? And I was like, seriously? Okay. I hate to break this to you, but I do my own writing. I do all my own stunts.
Yeah. Where can people follow you?
I am at Leda Glyptis on Twitter and LinkedIn. I have pretended to go on Mastodon, but I just can't.
Yeah, no Mastodon. And Fintech Futures, your blog, where can people go and read
My blog is available every Thursday on Fintech Futures.
Yeah.
It's usually reshared under the hashtag Leda Writes.
Yeah.
And there is actually a depository of Leda Writes where you can go back and read every single blog I've written in the last 6 years on the Fintech Futures website.
I think that's a really good place to start, because if people read that and they like it, I'm sure they're going to like your book as well.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Awesome. Well, it's great to see you again, my friend.
And you.
Congrats on the book.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in and watching or listening. As always, you can connect with me, Dexter Cousins, on LinkedIn and Twitter. If you're new to the show, make sure to give us a follow and a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, a like and subscribe. If you're coming back, thanks so much for your support. Until the next episode, keep well.